The elephant incident. In the summer of 1994, Honolulu wasn't expecting chaos to the circus tent. The Ringling Brothers Circus had rolled into town, and that evening, hundreds of families filled the arena for a show. The most. It was supposed to be a night of fun, laughter, and entertainment. But for one elephant named Tyke, it was the night everything came crashing down. Tyke was a massive African elephant who had spent years performing under bright lights and loud crowds. But on this night, something inside her broke. As the act began, Tyke suddenly turned on her trainer, charging with terrifying force. Within seconds, the crowd realized something was wrong. The show wasn't a performance anymore. The elephant tossed her trainer aside, trampling him in front of a stunned audience. People screamed, children cried, and chaos erupted as Tyke stormed out of the ring. She didn't stop there. Breaking through the circus gates, she charged into the streets of Honolulu, cars swerving, pedestrians running in panic. For nearly half an hour, Tyke rampaged through the city, unstoppable and furious. Police and bystanders scrambled to contain her, but nothing worked. Finally, armed officers surrounded her, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the streets. It took dozens of rounds before she collapsed, and the city fell silent. When it was over, one man was gone, the elephant was gone, and hundreds of witnesses were left with memories they would never forget. The fire incident. On a hot afternoon in July of 1944, thousands of families packed into the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus in Hartford, Connecticut. For the kids, it was a day of wide eyes and wonder. Clowns, acrobats, and the smell of popcorn filling the air. The giant big top stretched high above them, covered in canvas treated with paraffin wax and gasoline to make it waterproof. At the time, no one realized how dangerous that really was. The show started like any other. Performers filled the ring, music played, and the crowd settled in for a long afternoon of entertainment. But then, during the middle of the performance, someone noticed smoke curling upward toward the roof of the tent. At first, it seemed small, like a candle flame, but in seconds, the heat and fuel coating the canvas turned it into an inferno. The fire climbed the sides of the tent faster than anyone could react. Within moments, the ceiling itself was ablaze. They were trapped under a collapsing firestorm. Panic erupted as families tried to escape. Some rushed for the exits, while others stumbled and fell in the stampede. In less than 10 minutes, the massive circus tent was nothing but ashes. More than 160 people lost their lives. Many of them children who had only come for a fun day out. Thousands of others were injured, some scarred for life, both physically and emotionally. The tragedy would go down in history as one of the deadliest fires in America. The train incident. In the early hours of June 22nd, 1918, the performers of the Hagenbeck-Wallace Circus were asleep in their train cars, somewhere along the tracks near Hammond, Indiana. They had just wrapped up a show, and most of the crew were resting, waiting for the next town on their endless tour. To them, it was just another night on the road, but it would soon turn into one of the darkest mornings the circus world had ever seen. At around 4 a.m., another train, this one carrying military supplies, was barreling down the same tracks. The engineer had fallen asleep at the controls. By the time he realized what was ahead, it was already too late. In a matter of seconds, the troop train slammed into the back of the stationary circus train with devastating force. The crash was so violent that it crushed the wooden cars instantly. Within moments, a fire broke out, fueled by the kerosene lanterns and wooden walls of the coaches. Performers who had been asleep never even had the chance to escape. The blaze lit up the night sky, and those who survived could only stand by, helpless, as the flames consumed the train. When morning came, the scale of the disaster was clear. 86 members of the circus were gone. Many of them could never be identified. They were later buried together in a mass grave in Chicago, marked only as unknowns. The fall incident. In May of 2004, families in St. Paul, Minnesota, packed into the arena to see the circus. The Ringling Brothers show was in full swing, and the crowd was buzzing with excitement. For most people, the highlight was always the daring acrobats, those who seemed to defy gravity itself. Among them was a performer named Desi Espana, known for her breathtaking silk aerial act. The lights dimmed, the music rose, and Desi climbed higher and higher into the rafters, suspended only by a long piece of chiffon fabric. From the ground, she looked fearless, twisting, spinning, and floating in midair as the audience gasped at every move. But what happened next would shock everyone into silence. As she prepared for one of her final drops, the fabric suddenly slipped. For a split second, there was confusion. Some thought it was part of the act, but then the horror set in. Desi plummeted over 30 feet, crashing onto the floor below in front of a stunned audience. The music cut, the crowd froze, Some screamed, others sat in disbelief, unable to process what they had just seen. Within moments, circus staff rushed to her side, while clowns were sent into the ring to distract the children in the audience. But it was clear to the adults that this was no performance. She was rushed to the hospital, but despite every effort, Desi Espana passed away later that night. The Lion Tamer incident, summer of 1872 in Bolton, England. A packed circus tent buzzed with excitement as families, children, and thrill-seekers all waited to see one of the most dangerous acts of the night, the Lion Tamer. Thomas McCart, known by his stage name Massati, stepped into the cage with several lions. He was already a spectacle himself. Years earlier, he had lost one of his arms in another accident, and yet here he was, standing tall, whip in hand, ready to show the crowd that nothing could break him. The audience fell silent as the lions prowled in circles, their eyes fixed on him. At first, the act went as planned. He cracked his whip, barked his commands, and the beasts obeyed. But then, something shifted. One lion suddenly lunged, then another, and before anyone could react, Massati was overwhelmed. The crowd's cheers turned into screams. Mothers pulled their children away, people rushed for the exits, and chaos rippled through the tent. Inside the cage, the trainers scrambled with hot irons and poles, trying to push the lions back. For several endless minutes, the scene was absolute pandemonium. When they finally managed to pull him from the arena, it was clear that the act was over. Forever. What was supposed to be the highlight of the night became one of the darkest moments in circus history, the lightning incident. It was the summer of 1897 in Wahpeton, North Dakota. The Ringling Brothers Circus had just rolled into town, and the crew was setting up the big top. The canvas was stretched across the field, ropes pulled tight, and towering wooden poles were being raised one by one into the air. To most people in town, this was an exciting day, but for the workers underneath those heavy beams, it was just another job. The sky, though, told a different story. Clouds gathered above the town, dark and restless. The wind picked up, the air grew heavy, and a storm started to roll in faster than anyone expected. The workers pressed on, hurrying to finish before the rain hit. But nature had its own timing. Without warning, a flash ripped across the sky. A deafening crack followed as a bolt of lightning shot down, striking the very pole the crew was working on. In an instant, 2 men fell to the ground, lifeless. A third man staggered, badly injured, before collapsing soon after. The other workers froze, stunned, unsure if what they had just seen was even real. When the storm cleared, all that remained was silence. Later, locals built a memorial in the shape of a circus pole to remember the men who lost their lives that day. That's it for this video. If you made it this far, you're one of the few who stays till the end, and that means a lot. Take care, and I'll see you next time.